Evening. What's going on, everyone? This is the Basketbros for Sunday. And you know something? It's like this is the Pundit's Pundit, but not just any Pundit's Pundit, not just my mom's Pundit's Pundit or anybody else's, but the Pundit's Pundit. Anyway, Jacob Christner. Tonight, I am basically taking over the whole situation here, like I had in the last week. It'll be back to normal tomorrow. I promise you that. I'm not as loud or as boisterous, but we'll see what goes. Anyway, we've got our two for the night, and I hope we can't wait to see Denzel the next week. We have the two tonight. Scott Morganroth, how's it going?
Doing great, Jacob. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. I'm trying out some new adjustments with some lighting and stuff, you know?
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, trying out that thing. It's like, so we have another good Sunday night. And then we have Will Vogel. What's going on, buddy?
Talking sports with you guys any day of the week is my cup of tea. I tell you what, because you know what? It makes me escape from reality and it brings in the love, the passion, the thing I love most about life besides my family and my friends. Sports.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have this here. I think I'm going to get rid of this light here for the night at least. Yeah, I keep getting a shadow. I didn't want to do that tonight, you know. So anywho, we're going to go through it tonight here. That's like Denzel, we will see you next week. We're going to miss you here. But we've got this. While we're at it, let's get to our first topic or our first deal we have right now. Oh, wonderful. This is I thought of you when we thought of this, Scott.
Yeah,
all right. Dennis Rodman says Larry Bird would play in Europe in today's era. Do we agree or disagree? Here's the thing. Biggest issue with something like that is the fact that this is somebody who's, this is the new era and you're going through the media and you're trying to make people on social media happy. What makes them mind you, Bird is still top 10 on most lists of all time. You know what I'm saying? He's top 10 most lists of all time still. He won't be for much longer in life, probably another generation. It's just because people, like we were talking about this last week when it came to Wilt Chamberlain's, he got $1.7 million, his jersey, and it could have been even more if people knew him more. Same thing will happen with Bird. But the biggest thing about it is, so you got to make people happy. You got to be able to give LeBron, and LeBron's the same position. But here's the thing that I had against this. The thing, first off, it started with, about could Larry Bird beat LeBron James one-on-one, which is an absolutely no. Absolutely not. Not a chance. Larry Bird was a free safety on the defensive end. Period. End of story. He intercepted fast breaks. He blocked off passes. He'd leave his guy to go get to another guy. That's what he was. He wasn't a one-on-one guy. There weren't too many players, truthfully, that would have beat him one-on-one. And that he would have beat one-on-one. That's just the truth with that. But then Dennis added that he wouldn't have been good in this era. And the first thing I have to say to something like this is, what makes you say that? And then here's the thing. Jokic is the same exact style. The same slow style. And Bird didn't get that slow, truthfully, until he was out of until he was like his back problems got to that way. He was kind of halfway deceptively fast. So anyway, I wanted to be able to bring this up to you. What do you think of that, Scott?
I couldn't disagree with Dennis anymore, and I love Dennis. I enjoy working with him during the Bad Boys era. But you have to understand there's a bit more of a history than one would think on the surface. Pistons and the Celtics were true rivals, and they didn't like each other. There were a lot of things said back and forth between Rodman, Bird, Thomas, and Bird that were not pleasantries, okay?
Right.
So for Dennis to say this now, way later, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. No way. That's item number one.
Yeah.
Number two, Larry Bird would outsmart tons of these players in today's NBA. They don't have the intelligence whatsoever to compare it with a guy like Larry Legend. So, the way I look at it with Dennis Rodman is I think there's a little bit of past experience and hatred towards Larry Bird that factors into this more than most people would really realize. And that's just the way I feel. I mean, so yeah, no, I totally disagree with this at all. I can't find a way to drink that Kool-Aid, Dennis. Sorry.
One of the things I had with him was it all started with the one-on-one, which we can all agree by itself. I mean, LeBron's just faster. LeBron's just faster footwork off the ball. He would have just smoked Bird in one-on-one. but that's not the point. Larry Bird didn't play too many players one-on-one. Remember, he'd leave his guy all the time to go steal passes from an off guy. That's what he did. It's like that was his defense. It's like every once in a blue moon, he'd strip you dry. Every once in a blue moon, remember that he did that in 19. We're talking about the 87 against Detroit. He did that. He stole the pass. But in 84, he also stole that one from Philly against Andrew Toney.
Well, let me make another point clear here. I wonder myself personally, Will and Jacob, you might agree with this. I think Dennis Rodman would have a hard time playing in today's NBA because they don't play defense.
Yeah, well, they call fouls on him all the time.
Well, that's true, but they don't play defense.
Oh, yeah.
They all live and die by the three-point shot and the rebound. So, Dennis would gobble up a lot of rebounds, but they don't play defense. So I question whether Dennis could even play in today's era. And I wonder how many of yesteryear's players would want to even play in this era. This is the worst era of basketball that I ever imagined, which is another reason why I personally don't do a lot of basketball on my network. I enjoy making sure that we advertise, that we bring on Basketbros and simulcast it to our network to give everybody on our network a flavor of it, which is great because we have an established entity here. But no, I don't know. I struggle with this era. I know we have to do what we have to do, both past and present, but I don't think either of them could play in today's NBA.
Well, and hey, Ken, how's it going? And Will, I'm just going to say this. Let me ask this question to you. Mm-hmm. Really, by itself, wouldn't you say? I mean, what would you say? What would you say by itself? What would make Larry big time in this game in comparison? Because we were just talking to him right now. What do you think he would be the most successful with in this game?
He was the original point forward. I don't care what anybody says. If someone says it's LeBron, no way. No. Look at the film. Larry ran the fast breaks. Larry passed the ball. Larry shot the ball. He played defense. He was the cornerback, the safety, like you said. He was the original point forward. He would dominate in today's game. Yeah, it may be a little too fast, but guess what? Larry would play at his own speed. He'd get the rebounds, the points, and the assists. As for Dennis Rodman, when Scott said, would he play in the NBA today? No, he'd be out of the league probably in a year or two with his antics. Or who knows, because Adam Silver may be like, I don't know, 30 games for him sounds right if Rodman did something stupid. But who knows? But no, I definitely think Larry Bird could definitely hold his own ground in today's NBA because look at the point forwards we have now to thank Larry Bird for. We have LeBron, Jokic, KD. There's been a handful since Larry Bird, and they all have to thank Larry Bird. So, yes, he definitely strives.
And when you think about it, okay, that I don't think Larry Bird would want to play in today's NBA because it's awful. But could he? Well, yeah. I don't
he would, but he wouldn't want to.
And by the way, Ken,
either.
Ken, great to hear from you. Happy July 4th to you. I always appreciate you coming on every broadcast I'm involved. You are the BEST, Ken. Thank you very much. Happy holiday. And we'll have a little bit of activity middle of the week. Right now I have a lot of other company business to take care for on Monday and Tuesday. So thanks for being on again.
Well, and here's the thing. The thing about Dennis, he was a very, very, very smart player as far as under the basket, as far as his defense. It's like he gave Shaq all kinds of trouble.
Right.
All kinds. He was tremendous. But see, one of the things is he was also a very rough player, and that would have caused a lot of fouls. But the biggest deal to say something like that is I always believe people say things like that, any of this era now, and its reason being it's because we have to make LeBron look like the greatest small forward of all time. But there is no. Here's the thing: there's no LeBron without Bird.
And there is no what, Jacob? Also, you know why else I think it did it? Because no one's mentioned his name in X amount of years since the whole thing with Kim Jong-un. He's probably just like, how can I piss off a lot of people and bring my name back to relevance?
I think Dennis would rather. Nah, I think because he was in an interview, I think Dennis would rather just be left alone, but he said it. But the biggest thing I look at is just the fact that he has one big issue, and it is Bird, but it's also that situation where it's like we've got to make LeBron the greatest small forward of all time, which by stats, they would say it. He's the number one scorer, number four in assists, excuse me. But the issue being that here's the deal, there's no Bron without Bird. There's no coaches. There aren't coaches out there that would play that game. You got to remember, Larry Bird, you remember Bill Fitch and Casey Jones, right, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the whole thing. Bird was awesome the first 4 years, mind you. 79 to 83. He was awesome, don't get me wrong, but it was different. With Casey Jones, he was a video game. They played such a different style with KC. It was literally the point forward type thing, which without a Casey Jones around, there isn't a LeBron around because there's no coach that would allow him to play like that. It's like no matter how athletic and how much of a freak LeBron James is. I mean, how much of a freak was Ralph Sampson when he was 7'4", dribbling up the court?
Yeah, but you know what, Jacob, let's put it all in perspective here, okay? We talk about LeBron James. Well, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, LeBron James doesn't have a job because this thing was on tape delayed. It was headed toward bankruptcy. So let's not, I understand where a lot of this is coming from. But again, I'll reiterate what I said. Dennis Rodman and Larry Bird didn't like each other, okay? Larry Bird, when he accepted the executive role for the Indiana Pacers and Isiah Thomas was the coach, you know what? I knew Isiah was headed to the unemployment line because of hostilities. A lot of people have to understand that the Pistons and Celtics rivalry was absolutely pure hatred, period, okay?
Yeah.
So all this hypothetical talk that we're dealing with about LeBron, I don't care. I mean, LeBron don't mean nothing. Without Magic and Bird, you don't have today's NBA. You don't have these guys getting overpaid the amount of money that they're getting. So this is all pure hypothetical. I really do. I mean, the question that you have here is Dennis Rodman says Larry Bird would play in Europe in today's era. Well, again, I'll once again say I disagree. Larry Bird could play in any era, but would he want to play in today's era? I don't think so.
That's true. Well, that was a good conversation. Let's get to the next one. We have some nice little topics here. We're going to see. Anyway, Jalen Rose, Jeff Van Gundy, and others as part of ESPN's recent layoffs. Suzy Kolber after 27 years with the company. Well, we're going to be talking about this on Wednesday on Pundit's Pundit also. So we're going to go through the list on that one.
Right.
But I'm going through the list on that one.
Right.
But the biggest thing I have to say with something like this is it's understood. I had an idea Jalen Rose was going because remember that hostage negotiation, that hostage video that he did when he made a quote unquote boo-boo mistake, and they put him before the advertisement. He had to go say, "I'm sorry for what I said." He did that on the air. I knew he'd be one of the ones that go out. I knew he'd be one of the ones to go out when just remembering back. And then Jeff Van Gundy, truthfully, he is, even though he's of a certain age, he's still young enough to start assistant coaching and bring himself back as a coach again.
I agree.
So you've got that. So we're not. Yeah. Malik. See, the biggest thing also you got to realize is we bring up the Malika Andrews deal, but you got to realize Malika Andrews Kolber's better than Andrews, but Andrews is good. The biggest issue is they kept Kendrick Perkins. They kept Kendrick Perkins, and they kept some
Malika?
really not better than Suzy, but she's good. I mean, at least she does her homework. Kendrick Perkins is terrible.
Yeah,
Kendrick
but you know
Perkins.
what? Here's the deal about Kendrick Perkins, okay? He can go out there and slug it out with Stephen A. Smith, and you need some sort of entertainment back and forth of those. Otherwise, Jacob, I agree. He is awful.
No, he's awful. Oh, yeah, those two.
You got two grunches talking about the NBA. Go figure.
Yeah, but at least but it's like Kendrick Perkins sounds like a fast food drive-through. I said it. Sit that down. He's ridiculous.
Well, I met Suzy Kolber a couple times, and she's an absolute sweetheart, and she's really good. So.
Oh no! See, I don't think Malik is better than Suzy Kolber, but Suzy Kolber's got more experience. But I think here's the thing: Malika Andrews at least does her damn homework.
Yeah, but the only difference between the two is number one, you have a lot of NFL talent. So some of that was expendable, and you didn't have as much NBA. And I believe that's where the numbers really play out. But Suzy is Suzy. She's a pioneer in broadcasting for women. But they just needed Malika more on the NBA level than Suzy at the NFL level.
Understood what you're saying with that. That's why, here's the thing. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying, I don't like her better than Suzy, but we're comparing Malika to Kendrick Perkins here.
Okay.
And here's the thing also. Jalen Rose said that what was that Jacob Blake? The Jacob Blake situation. He said Jacob Blake died during that shooting, which he did not.
Right.
And he kept repeating it. So I get what you're all saying. But Jalen Rose lied too, but you knew he was out. But Kendrick, the biggest thing about it is Kendrick. I'm comparing Malika to Kendrick, and it's like I think she's better than him, and she deserved to keep it better than him. But they both kept it anyway. Suzy Kolber, oh no, she's class. She's all the way. She shouldn't have gone. But it is what that is. Now, I'm going to ask you something, Will. What did you think of the whole situation?
So Jalen Rose, I liked him when I was younger, and then he just handled some situations very weird, like you said. Suzy Kolber, she killed it. I loved her analyzation with Steve Young, Randy Moss, and those guys. The pre-games before football games, the post-games, the post-game talks. Loved Suzy Kolber. As for Jeff Van Gundy, I think he can find his way back on the sidelines as an assistant. But you know what? I think he can be annoying at times. But you know what? I actually liked how Jeff Van Gundy was because he was with Mike Breen and Mark Jackson. And Mark Jackson, no offense, he should have, and Scott knows this, you know this.
Right.
Mark Jackson should have a dang NBA job right now.
Oh, no doubt about
Mark
it.
Jackson shouldn't be sitting on the sideline being like, man, I need that job right now. Man, I should be coaching these young guys. And then, but I really honestly like Jeff Van Gundy. I think he's more fun than his brother. I can't stand Stan Van Gundy. I think Stan Van Gundy is one of the most annoying coaches, most high-pitched voices ever. He's like, Dwight Howard. Like, hates Dwight Howard. Just, like, is so annoying. Jalen Rose, I'm not surprised. They're probably justice for Kolber, yes. Jalen Rose, I knew he was probably going to be on his way out. I did like him at one point when he had the show Jalen and Jacoby with Dave Jacoby, or whatever his name is.
By the way, moved on his own anyways because he saw a sinking ship, by the way.
Yeah, Kolber,
right.
Jacoby did, yeah.
Yeah,
Jacoby's
well, can I interject something on a couple of your points, please? Number one, Jeff Van Gundy, to me, will be missed a lot because he's an old school guy and isn't afraid to tell it like it is. And he's been on the coaching end and he's gone after officials, number one. They're going to miss him a lot. And number two, your other point, which is really dead accurate, is Mark Jackson should have gotten another head coaching job. But I do, like Jacob said, and I agree with you there as well, Jacob, that Jeff Van Gundy is ready to go back and be a coach of some kind of assistant. And you know where I think a good fit would actually be for Jeff Van Gundy would be with the Dallas Mavericks, so he can teach Jason Kidd how to go out there and play some defense. Because right now, with the recent re-signing of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, I don't think these guys know what the word defense is, and if they did, they're doing a poor job showing it to me. So
no,
I could see Suzy going to. As far as Suzy, I could see her going to Fox or Outkick.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I can see them going there.
I agree.
Yeah, and like you said, Jacob, we're going to be talking about this, but I think Fox is watching right now to find out which one of these people, so they'll be able to add some more people later on. They're just kind of taking a front row seat and get the pick of the litter about who goes.
I just have that weird feeling that Jalen Rose is going to end up on like FS1.
Yeah, maybe. Or I could see him doing a lot of media work in Metro Detroit, my hometown as well.
Or getting a
Very
podcast.
Popular there.
Or getting a podcast. Everybody's getting a podcast anyway.
Jalen Rose is anything but finished. Mark my word. He's got a lot of
Metro Detroit. Well, here's my thing. It's like, and good point with my thing is I like the justice for Kolber thing. Personally, to me, she is the very best, and she shouldn't have been gone. But that ESPN's out of their minds anyway. But I'm not going to I cannot stand, like, for instance, I can't stand Mark Jones. I think he's hateful. I can't stand Kendrick Perkins. I can't stand. See, I don't have.
Do you like? Oh, sorry.
I don't like. And here's the thing. I don't mind Malika. I don't mind Malika. Malika Jones. I don't mind Malika Andrew. I don't mind that at all because. By itself, I know there was those mistakes like you were saying like that, but she looks like she actually works hard. Everybody else looks like that everybody else that I brought up absolutely looks like well, maybe Mark Jones. He's been around long enough, but he's just showing his ass.
Did
He's
you
just showing his, he
did
shows
you
his ass every
guys
single
hear
time.
who may take Jeff Van Gundy's spot, like as a potential replacement?
Yeah, you know
I
what? I've
don't
heard
hate him.
Doc
He's
Rivers'
okay.
name being mentioned as a possibility that he could. But you know what? I don't want to get into hearsay right now. Well, because as Jacob and I have been mentioning before, let's get it right instead of get it early. And we,
What do you guys, Jacob? I want to know your opinion on JJ Redick and Richard Jefferson.
You're talking about JJ. He likes to tell us that he played 15 years in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's one of his main gimmicks. He likes to tell us he did that. The biggest thing with him is there were people that were celebrating him, quote unquote, fighting back against. This is the whole conservative thing that you'll see on the thing. He fought back against Kendrick Perkins. No, he did not. No, he did not. He was. I mean, when Kendrick Perkins yelled at him, he backed off because he yelled from another camera angle, and it's like, I said it. And it's like,
and then Richard Jefferson's interesting in that.
Yeah, Jefferson could be good. I have to see more. I mean, just saying personal. But no, I want to see more of the thing. It's like he could probably be good. But the biggest thing about it was just the fact that it's like Redick, to me, I'm always going to remember that he backed down on something that needed to be said. He did say, yes, that no, this is not racism. I said it. That's what, and then he backed down. Someone needs, I don't care if the guy's 6'10". Someone needs to get this guy. Someone needs to fight back on this guy because he's out of his mind.
Well, number one, JJ Redick is outright awful. Period. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And who was the other one you were mentioning? Well,
Richard Jefferson.
Yeah, you know what? He's okay, average, but I could take him or leave him. But JJ Redick should be off the air. Why they renegotiated and brought him back to me is called delusional, or in the eyes of Disney and in the eyes of ESPN, it's Mickey Mouse.
I actually, real quick, speaking of like analysts, I was at the NBA All-Star Weekend a few years ago. I got to meet Matt Weiner, who does NBA TV. Very cool dude. Very cool dude. And then I got to meet Dennis Scott, another class act dude.
Yeah, that's good. And it's like, and those are great people. Those are, I mean, by itself, I heard Dennis Scott's always been a really good guy. But
3D is funny.
Well, here's what I think. Here's what I think who they need for the next by itself. ESPN just picked up Pat McAfee, who is a star. Absolute star. And it's like, this is where hopefully Pat McAfee is the lead in to getting more sports, just people bring in the normal everyday sports guy, the middle class guy that wants to watch sports and that's it, get off the job, have a beer. If he can, and you watch that show and have a beer with the guy. I will hope that I hope ESPN brings more of those types back.
I'm calling right now. I think
once
Lee Corso retires, I think he's going to step into Corso's shoes.
Good luck. All I can tell you is this, okay? The way I look at it, if you're going to do that, might as well bring back Rush Limbaugh. That was a mistake. I didn't even know they were getting into it.
Talk about dark times on ESPN.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. They knew what they were buying with him, but as my uncle Ernie Harwell would say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, they couldn't stand the heat. They got out of the kitchen, but Rush Limbaugh, to me, added something, and that network wasn't ready to take the Rush Limbaugh plunge.
No, they weren't.
Well, no. As I said, you said good luck. That's right. I can hope and pray, but it's like I just like that Pat. See, the one big reason Pat McAfee made it with less money in the first place is because with FanDuel, he had to pay his own production costs, even with all that money. With ESPN, he does not. And production costs can cost money. So they're right then and there. So plus the fact all of the excess other money that he can make in bonuses will blow away that contract anyway. But that's the one thing I want to hope and pray for, that it's like that there's something you're not going to bring back 1990s ESPN ever. Don't get that wrong. But the one thing I would want to hope is when there's another hassle, kind of like we've seen in France right now, no one's bringing it up because it's France. But when we see another one here in the United States, the ESPN, I'm just sorry. I'm talking about everyone. It can be the Sage Steele. It can be anybody, because we're talking about everybody's mindset. Shut up. Because the people want to watch sports to get away. I'm just saying. They want to watch sports to get away. When that whole summer of 2020 was happening, There was people worried about they were going to die. There was people worried about their own, with livelihoods. Was this going to be a plague? Was this going to turn into a plague? Can we get a job again? Can we leave the house ever again? They worried about that. You don't need to be going. You already had enough on the news to be dealing with. You don't need to be going on ESPN dealing with the same thing. And it's like, let's just hope the next time around we have something like this, let people escape just for once.
Okay.
Excellent point.
And that's just why I like the idea of Pat McAfee. I know Pat McAfee will let you escape. He's a star. He'll let you escape and do that. But it's like, I don't want to. The whole Sage Steele thing, and I'm bringing that thing. She's just sued. ESPN tried offering her $500 or $1,000 to keep her mouth shut because they suspended her because she had political. She's a conservative political activist, where the other ones were liberal. Well, they suspended her and didn't suspend the others, so she's now suing them. And it's a tough situation. It's like, that's why I said Sage Steele to everybody. When we have another big hassle like we did in 2020, just shut up in sports. I'm sorry, the world wants to escape.
Nope, you're exactly right.
Yeah. And it's like, and let's get on to the next one. We've gotten quite a bit on this. We've got a, oh my Lord. Basketbros Moment at times, Sprewell versus Carlesimo. I don't know how much of a versus this was because Carlesimo was an absolute wimp through all this. But everybody that doesn't know this, basically PJ Carlesimo just kept screaming during practice in Latrell Sprewell's face. And normally, back in those times, 80s, 90s, whatever, players took it. In this case, he choked Carlesimo out. Bruce is on his face. Then he chased him right back into the locker room and did it again. And it cost him a year of his career. It cost Sprewell a year of his career. But see, the biggest thing about this to me is this is what I've always said about yellers. Carlesimo was a big-time yeller and just ridiculous. This is what I have to say about yellers. If you don't have the ability to at least swing back or fight back, just don't do that. There are ones that are just, there's a whole story of Dom DeVoe over at Tennessee. He got absolutely cold-cocked by Kevin Nash, who ended up being the wrestler. Got cold-cocked, and because Kevin was actually street smart about it, he got a lawyer before he could get kicked off the team. Ended up getting kicked off for weed anyway, like later on. But he went screaming at a 7-foot-tall Kevin Nash and got cold-cocked. And to me, you do want to motivate them. But getting violently angry at somebody, getting in their face and doing all that kind of stuff all the time, unless you're Bob Knight and you're 6'5" and 240, and even the wrestling coach took care of him. Unless you're that, don't do it. These are much bigger guys than you, and if you don't have the ability to swing, I would just rather find another way. Go ahead, Scott.
Jacob, you and I don't disagree on a lot, but you and I are going 365 on this one. Okay, 360, whatever. Rule number one, don't ever hit your coach. He has a whole lot more power. Hold on. You had your turn, I got mine.
Yeah,
okay. Don't ever hit your coach. Number two, Latrell Sprewell, remember once upon a time, I'm not earning enough to feed my family. Oh, my goodness. This situation really helped you feed your family? No. And how long did Latrell Sprewell last in the league thereafter? Not a whole lot longer. And number three, how many championship rings did PJ Carlesimo get when he was working under Greg Popovich? So I understand if you can't swing back, but it's hard. It's like saying, well, I'm going to swing at my dad. Okay. And a lot of people frown upon that. So I'm not saying that PJ Carlesimo is the perfect specimen in this thing, but the reality is this: a coach does his job and a player is underneath them in the chart. Okay, player and coach, in the ownership or the timeline present. So I have zero respect whatsoever for Latrell Sprewell. None. The guy's broke. He was an average player, good player, and he's done everything wrong that an individual can do. And you know what? PJ Carlesimo's done fine. When he left coaching, he's on the air, right? Doing broadcasting. He's a professional. He took Seton Hall to what, the NCAA title game, only to lose to my Michigan Wolverine. Not the worst thing in the world, but he took them there. So PJ Carlesimo has been a winner every sense of the word. So I don't believe that you swing at your coaches.
No. I'm talking about Carlesimo. No. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. You expect them to go out there and fight back? Well, you know what? I have news for you. That was everything that Latrell Sprewell did, Jacob, to me was bad. So it's not about swinging back at a coach. It's me like a 10-year-old swinging at a kindergartner. Really? You're going to do that?
Carlesimo swinging on him. That's what I meant. Why didn't he get his? It's like he just took it. That's what I meant.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, Jacob. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I know he took it. Look where they both went. Look where their careers went. Okay.
Well, Carlos.
One's out of basketball, the other one's in it. If my memory serves me correctly, isn't Carlesimo in the College Basketball Hall of Fame?
Well, Sprewell was insane. For one thing, saying I can't feed. You got to realize when he didn't get that anymore, and he said, I have to feed my family and do all that stuff. You got to remember, he's talking on the basis of what his lifestyle he wanted to live. He was stupid about that.
Right.
But by the time he got out of the league, they literally had to repossess his boat. He had a yacht. They had to repossess so many big cars and all that kind of stuff. So he not only did you feed your family, he wanted to maintain a lifestyle that wasn't going to last forever. So Sprewell was stupid. Sprewell's an idiot. But the biggest thing that I think about every single time is Rob Dibble and Lou Piniella. It's like Rob Dibble went after Lou, and Lou gave him his all. And it's like, Lou is an old school guy. Lou gave it his all with a guy who's much younger. And that was the point I was bringing something like that. It's like, I don't know if I want somebody's the hands around my throat and I just sit there and that's all I meant.
I know. But then when you're talking about Rob Dibble, who was a hothead in the first place, you got two hotheads. That's a different story. Then you have a boxing match in a baseball clubhouse. But you're talking about Latrell Sprewell and PJ Carlesimo, the ultimate mismatch. You ever been in a Major League Baseball clubhouse, Jacob? I got news for you. Especially playing 162 games and 190 when you factor in spring training. You're living around these guys a lot longer than these NBA guys are with half the schedule to begin with. So, you're talking about the Reds, Jacob, okay, versus the Latrell Sprewell, you're talking about the difference between a dog and a cat, which is sizable.
Yeah. And go ahead, Will. I'm sorry, but we kept you off for that.
No, you're good. Sprewell was totally out of his element. And there was another story when the Warriors were losing the Lakers in a blowout. There was a timeout, and he laughed in the huddle. And Carlesimo said to get serious, and he didn't. And he said in front of the whole team, Sprewell said, "You're a blanking joke," in front of the whole team. Coaches, assistant coaches, players, and then Carlesimo sat him out the next game. And you know what? Deservingly so, because that guy is your coach. That guy isn't your teammate. That guy's your coach. That guy decides your minutes. The GM doesn't decide your minutes. The coach does. And guess what? You sat out the next game, and guess whose fault that is? It's not the coach's fault. It's not your other player's fault. It's your own dang fault. And you have to take ownership with that. And I agree with Scott. You do not lay your hands on any executive above you or coach or GM or someone, because guess what? It's not going to end well for you.
Well, let me ask you a hypothetical question. Both of you, okay? I'll ask the question. Do you think that Latrell Sprewell would have pulled that stunt against Phil Jackson or Chuck Daly?
No, because he would have been kicked out of the league.
Exactly. That's my point, Will. What about you, Jacob?
Oh, no.
All right. So my opinion, okay, and knowing Chuck Daly the way I know him, you'd have been exiled for good.
You would have been kicked out of the league. You would never have
let me tell you this, again. Will. Okay, hang on. Okay. I remember the way Chuck used to tell me this stuff. I loved it. Okay. There's the deal. If you didn't practice hard, I was messing with your minutes. And I got news for you. In Latrell Sprewell's case, he ain't messing with any minutes. He ain't getting any.
Jackson, the thing about, you're right. Daly yelled plenty. But Jackson, after about the first 2 or 3 years, not even in China. Not even in China. No. Pop's so respected. But here's the thing with Jackson. After the first year or two with the titles and everything, he was so chilled. He made Zen books, and he was so chill. He just stopped yelling altogether. So there wouldn't have been anything with Jackson.
I
But
don't know.
Daly, yeah,
He would have gotten outraged with Sprewell anyway. He would have
no,
lost that whole
oh
Zen
no,
thing.
no, he would have. See, with Jackson, for one thing, he would have had help because Jordan would have just said, "You're out." He would have just had help with that because Jordan basically ran that team along with Jackson.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not going there. Jackson knows how to pull a lot of strings, but yeah, he obviously to Phil's credit, he had to do what he had to do with Jordan. But what about those couple of years when he didn't have him there? Then you showed that at least Jackson could keep the guys competitive. But the X factor in a lot of these cases is you had Horace Grant on the first end of the three-peat and Dennis Rodman on the back end of the three-peat. And we talk about the little nuances in the game of basketball, defense and rebounding. But and remember though, Jackson proved his worth when he went to LA and was able to win with the Lakers too.
Jackson's all-time great.
Yeah, but when it comes to running a front office, he was dead awful out with the Knicks.
Jackson, there's a whole point of why we'll put the Bird and Magic deal with this. The reason Magic was a terrible coach and Bird was a great coach because Bird didn't think he could beat anybody anymore. That was the same with Jordan, and that's the same with Jackson. Jackson still thought he was the better coach, and then there's Jordan as an owner being bad. He just thought he could still beat his players. You got to have a thing where you're the coach and you're the leader, but you're not going to go beat them anymore.
Well, here's the thing. That's where you're wrong again, Jacob, okay? Magic thought that everybody should play to his capabilities, and you don't have 12 to 16 Magic Johnsons. Larry Bird was the most even-keeled guy on the planet and knew, learning from a lot of people that, you relate to your players by trying to make sure you're on the same level is what you do. And that's what's the difference between the two personalities. Let's face it, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were totally different individuals altogether. But Magic Johnson thought they should play as good as he did. But nowadays, the coaches that get into trouble that are superstars all believe in that concept. Where other ones that figure, we're on the same wavelength no matter what era, then they tend to have a little bit of better success, Jacob. I know that. I've seen it all too many times.
Well, Bird was, for one thing, also, Bird let Dick Harder do his defense, and he let McCarlisle do the offense, and he managed the game.
And you know what that means? That's a Don Shulaism. Let's go out there and I remember learning from Coach Shula, okay? Mm-hmm. You got to let a guy cater to his strength, and that's exactly what Larry Bird did.
Yep. It's like, well, we got let's get to the next one because this has been a good show tonight. And it's gone fast, too.
Oh, boy. Yay.
Speaking of terrible. Speaking of terrible. Let me say this. Isiah, just in every which way, whether it was coaching, whether it was basketball operations, whether it was, I don't know if it was ego or whatever, he just wasn't great good at the deal. But you want to know, I'm going to give it a shot tonight on this one here. Will, this is around your world, and I'm listening in. What do you think of that whole basketball? What do you think of that whole tenure?
It was terrible. It was downright terrible. It was the complete opposite of his NBA career. He was an amazing NBA player. He was a horrible front office guy. Well, let me finish. He traded several future picks who would later become, I know they're not Hall of Famers, but they were good players, Joakim Noah and LaMarcus Aldridge. He signed mediocre players like Jerome James. Hear this, 5 years, $30 million, never averaged more than 5.4 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, and guess what? He played 90 games in 4 seasons, and then he was traded to the Bulls. 90 games in 4 seasons? What is this, Zion Williamson before Zion Williamson? Come on. And then he also signed Larry Brown, who, don't get me wrong, I've met Coach Brown. Larry Brown's a great coach, did a lot of great things with the Pistons and a bunch of other great teams. But you signed Larry Brown for 5 years, $50 to $60 million. And guess what? He only lasted 1 year. So Isiah Thomas is definitely up there when it comes to worst president of basketball operations, GMs, coaches, whatever have you, like management list, because he just straight up he took from the Knicks from the glory years into a dark shadow up until just recently getting into the playoffs. So Yeah, Isiah Thomas. You put the Knicks in a dark hole.
Well, all right. I know a lot of people are expecting me to comment on this one, and I promise not to disappoint. So let's go back and take a little bit of a timeline here when he was with the Pistons. After his career was over, he was supposed to get a piece of the action from Mr. Davidson. But for some reason or another, Mr. Davidson and Isiah had a disagreement, and Mr. Davidson was uneasy about elevating Isiah because apparently let things out before they were announced, from what I understand. So that thing fell through. Then he goes to Toronto with the Raptors, and I remember that real well. Doesn't do a bad job, during their expansion era. Again, but you're talking about an expansion era team where you have no background. It's pretty hard to screw up something that's bad at the begin with. And then you go to New York. Then you have a dysfunctional owner like James Dolan. I'm sure I'll never get invited there, and I really don't care anyhow. But the reality is you go from Detroit botching that deal to Toronto, where you're involved with an expansion team, to New York. And then you add a lot of the allegations that were inside of his tenure with the Knicks, and you have a situation that just blew up in your face. And of course, we also, it happened that when he went to go with the Indiana Pacers as a coach, he was a 500 coach. I think the worst thing that could have ever happened to Isiah Thomas, believe it or not, was once he left the Detroit Pistons, he was in bad shape. Furthermore, I believe he ended up taking the CBA and put it into bankruptcy. So that did not help his situation either. So when he left the Pistons, everything went south, and I don't think he's completely recovered from a lot of things that occurred after his Pistons tenure. And now I think he's working with NBA TV. I love Isiah Thomas. I had to spend time with him when he was over at FIU when he was a coach there. He didn't even win there, but that's a tough place to win with the Golden Panthers. But I saw him both in Miami as well as in Boca Raton. So Isiah Thomas, to me, and I think he got cited. There's no question about it in the Olympics. We'll use that for another day. So he's had a lot of bad luck, but he's created some of his own. But in summary, he was never the same after he left the Pistons, and his situation in New York was simply one bad dysfunctional act with arguably the worst owner in basketball, James Dolan.
Oh, and yeah. And here's one of my things. Let's compare.
By the way, I'm sorry, Jacob. Charles Oakley? That was a mess in its own right with James Dolan. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Isiah. Now, let's compare Isiah, MJ, and Larry as far as who, running front offices and everything. Isiah and MJ they did something really bad. It is something you don't need to be doing in the front office. Not only did they miss on the big names, which they kept trying to do. Remember, they would miss in the draft. They kept missing. Like you brought up Joakim Noah and Marcus Aldridge, was it?
Mm-hmm.
You brought those up. They missed there too. See, there are.
I think Jordan was worse, but I'll tell you why after.
Well, I'll just bring it this. And it's like we bring it up with Jordan, and there's enough to say about Jordan. You'll bring that up in a second. Yeah, but no. Here's the thing, and thank you, Denzel. Here's the thing with Larry. Larry never found that big. He never found that big difference maker. But he was on the dot. He was on the dot with just roster manipulation, with roster building. Year after year after year, your worst is 7 or 8 seed. Your best is 3 or 4 seed. That's year after year after year after year after year with him. It's like there are more fans that love Larry in Indiana than they don't. Those are most of the young ones that remember Danny Granger, and they remember the whole Paul George as a 4. They remember those. Yeah, mistakes get made sometimes. But that's the thing. You're not going to have great teams every single year. But if you could stay around in that level, that 7-8, where you can get to a next round, if you can be able to do that, you can keep building. Bird kept building these he kept building these rosters year after year after year that were constantly around, where Isiah and MJ kept going they kept going for the fences. They kept trying to get a grand slam and there's no one on base.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, and there was that. And it's like, that's the big thing. That's what a lot of things, especially if there's a Gen Z fan that quote unquote remembers what Bird did or whatever. Bird kept him around. Because where's Indiana right now based off the thing? He kept him around. You want to stay around and be able to get hot. And
Well,
he
here,
did.
let me add to your point, okay, Jacob,
Mhm.
because now we're getting a little closer on the same page. Bird wasn't bad. He really wasn't.
No.
Okay. Thomas and Jordan were just outright awful. They were. And it
Oh.
shows because they've been unsuccessful everywhere they've gone after their playing days. Bird, to me, is that why do you think Donnie Walsh wanted to keep Larry Brown around in Indiana? Why? Because he knew that Bird could bring something to the organization. But Jordan's a great businessman, don't get me wrong. He got a good return for the Hornets, once upon a time the Bobcats. And Thomas, well, I already summed up his story. So I'm with you all the way. But Bird did a heck of a job. Larry Bird succeeded on and off the court where a lot of them failed, including, as I aforementioned, Phil Jackson.
And I have a belief, like I said, superstars are looking for that, hitting the grand slam, like you said, with the grand slam with nobody on base. Right. They're looking to just hit it all the way. Larry treated it like, okay, we're gonna move person from second to third, first to second. We're gonna be positioned. We'll do the shift. He actually acted like a front office man, and they kept going around. You know what it was? He acted like a working man. What you have to do to improve the company. Everybody else acted like the star with a red carpet all the time.
Right.
And go ahead. What did you say you were saying this about Michael?
Yeah, he.
Why he was worse? You were saying he was worse. You gotta tell us.
Yeah, he was. I've seen some stupid stuff from MJ. Don't get me wrong, great player, but guy was just frustrating as an owner. I remember one play Malik Monk did an accidental mistake, and he goes like this. He literally goes, hits him in the back of the head, physically hits his own player, which never lay your own player. Do not lay, I don't care who you are. I say never lay your hands on your employee because you don't know what's going to happen. You could get sued. There can be a bunch of repercussions. He also passed on Paul George in the draft. He also passed on Bradley Beal. He's just, you know what? I like owners like Steve Ballmer. He may not be like the greatest owner ever, Ballmer, but you know why I like Steve Ballmer? Because he's there every Clippers game on the sideline, cheering on his team like this, uber excited. Where MJ, I used to go to a lot of Hornets games the last few years, would go every blue moon if it was a huge game. If not, you don't see him behind the bench. But you see guys like Ballmer and Cuban and other owners sit by their team and they're like cheering them on and supporting them and rooting for them and wanting the best. While MJ barely went to any Hornets games. And I like owners who attend their team's games, right, or at least stay for a little bit and then go into their office, do the paperwork, maybe come out every so often. And I had the pleasure a few years ago. I was walking upstairs on the courts of the Hornets. And I run in, and I've never met MJ. And I didn't like him as owner. I met Fred Whitfield, who ran the Hornets. Right. That guy supports that team through and through, always gave up for the best, what he wanted best for the city of Charlotte. And I had the honor of taking a picture with him and talking to him for a minute. And man, he was heads above the rest against Jordan. Because Jordan, every time he went to a game, when he was behind the bench or whatever, he looked miserable. Yeah, the team wasn't always the greatest.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? Let me tell you this real quick. Bill Davidson was at all the Pistons games, built him a brand new arena when the Boniek Silverdome went to the toilet. So, Jordan's a businessman, and it showed because he got a great return on investment. But we got to remember, though, Jordan saved basketball in Charlotte when it was in a tough spot. But Johnson,
that is true.
He did. He's far from George Shen, I'll tell you that. So, he did what he had to do, and now he turned it over where it's in better hands. Well, Bill Davidson was always there. I got to know Mr. D. He was quite an owner, and that's why he has the titles to show for it.
But, yeah, I'm done. That's all I wanted to say real quick.
Okay, here. We got this. Okay. We are going now. We are at the 49-minute mark, so we need to go to parting shots.
Wait,
we have parting shots, the Basketbros parting shots.
We don't
I'm sure you have those. And Scott, you go first, then you will. I'll take it. No, Scott first, then Will, then me.
Okay, well, I'm going to go talk about Damon Lillard, okay? I know in my mind, Damon, you wanted to stay in Portland forever, but now you've changed heart. I know your preferred destination is the Miami Heat. It would be great to be able to pair up with a Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and the Heat culture. And while I do believe in my mind the Portland Trailblazers will do their best to accommodate you, the Portland Trailblazers aren't in the business to accommodate Damian Lillard. Okay, they're in the business to get the best return on investment. So, Damian, if you wind up in Miami, great. If you don't, you want to be traded, the Portland Trailblazers are going to do what they have to do for the Portland Trailblazers. And it's a shame because now it seems like to me the Portland Trailblazers are starting to build something pretty decent over there with, I believe, Jeremy Grant and also Scoot Henderson. So they could be on to something building, but Damon, it's not like things just go the way you want them to. Okay, they're going to do what they have to deal with the Blazers. And I covered a couple Blazers games many years ago. They're great fans in Portland and arguably one of the best small market organizations in the NBA with their passionate fan base.
So as you guys know, July 4th is coming up shortly, just a few days from now, and I want to thank all the men, the women who have fought for our country, who have or have returned home, the ones that haven't returned home, the ones that are currently still there, because you guys are fighting for our freedoms, our justices, our well-being, to know we're safe at home, and making sure we have a good life. And again, thank you to the troops, Navy, Air Force, Army, Special Ops, Black Ops, whatever. But to the troops, thank you so much. You guys, we wouldn't be here with you guys. You guys, I think I love our troops. I care about our troops. And yeah, thank you again, troops.
All right. I got to ask this to the 76ers and the Nets also. Okay, first thing, 76ers. You gave up your basically your lottery draft balls in the first place, even though it wouldn't have been by there, but you gave up your first rounder for James Harden. Nets, you gave up two. You gave up yours for the. And I want to ask this. Here's the deal now. You gave this kind of the capital up, and now there's a chance to get Dame Lillard, a chance to finally. I mean, after the Jimmy Butler disaster in Philly, 1 year, there's finally a chance to get an actual sidekick for Embiid, who he needs. Maybe it could be Maxey, but just be safe. You had a chance, but there's probably not enough capital. And why? And the same with the Nets, because you keep trusting this absolute con artist, James Harden. This absolute con, constantly. He'll talk the good game and the thing. I'm just here for a ring. Meanwhile, he's out to go get peaches and cream over at the Cheetah. I mean, that is his number one thing that he thinks about. And he thinks about clout and the baby and whatever the guy, he wants to hang with. He doesn't. Guess what? Why didn't you go after a Marcus Smart? Why wouldn't you go after a Marcus Smart, who is I'm just saying hypothetical, two-time Hustle Award winner? Why wouldn't you go after that if you want to, especially with a guy like Nick Nurse as a coach now? But why wouldn't you go after something like that? And then they're saying things like, oh, Harden might go to Chicago. There's this fan base who still remembers the most psychotically competitive man in the history of life. That will not end well, especially when this guy isn't. But I just want to ask this. Why does he keep getting all these chances? Why does everybody keep listening? And again, it all goes back to this is TikTok. This is the era of everything. It's like, oh, what looks pretty? The name of the game in the end when you go into the front office is the ring. You don't get one with James Harden. You just won't. Quit believing this con. Offer him league minimum or a little over and give him incentive like get out, or he doesn't have to be here anymore. Because some of you front office people need to start taking things seriously. That was a great show, guys.
Yeah, really good show. One thing I want to add about James Harden, I believe his contract, as I understand right now, take his player option, and now they're looking to accommodate him to get rid of him, as I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now there's talk about him going to the Clippers. You know what? Let him go to the Clippers. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But but I do agree with your thought that if they're going to bring anybody, Lillard should be the guy and finally get Embiid a piece, because what's going to happen is you're going to ruin Joel Embiid's career. Remember, you tanked hard enough to get him, and I don't mean it as an analogy, hard in enough to get him. Oh, then again, maybe I do. Although the Diet Mountain Dews wore off way earlier, and I'm on the Canada Dry. And by the way, happy Canada Day to our national audience out there as well. They celebrated it yesterday. We're just going to acknowledge it here because there is a team in Canada called the Toronto Raptors, for whom we talked about here. Oh, Canada, yes. But anyways, okay. James Harden, go to LA. Too bad they don't have a team in Hawaii, and too bad they don't have a team in Iceland, so we don't have to hear about you ever.
Well, and that's the thing. I appreciate you saying that part. It's like, that's just the whole thing. So when I brought that up with the lottery, it's in fact, what if you gave your thing up and you're one of the 10 in the lottery balls, you have a chance at Wembanyama. Instead, okay, it's a small chance, but you get yourself a chance. You've given up your little small chance at a Wembanyama because Oklahoma City took yours in the first place, took your spot in the first place. That's number one. Number two, now you have a chance at Lillard, which you don't have probably anymore because you don't have the capital. And it's all because you wanted to get this guy who looks so pretty on social media. But in the end, it's always the same thing. And we don't have enough fans that call this out.
Well, Marcus Smart would have fit in Nick Nurse's system because he plays defense. Anybody that plays defense will always fit in Nick Nurse's system, period.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Will.
No, I was going to say Dame Lillard. There's another place. San Antonio has enough. They have a lot of first-round capital.
Right.
And that's good. Well, for Jacob Christa, the pundit, the Will Vogel, Scott Morganroth, welcome and good night from Basketbros. Have a good one. Denzel will miss you. We'll see you next week.